Hi, this is Mike Ignatoski, the creator of the Green Fox spreadsheet, the spreadsheet that uses Excel programming to make it behave like a computerized baseball scorebook or score sheet. It also automatically computes the game stats, which can be a big time saver. And even better, Green Fox can be configured to operate in one of three different league modes where it can track the cumulative stats for all players and teams in the league.
In this video, I'm going to cover the main enhancements and features in Green Fox version 4.4. And I've broken these up into two groups. I would call these the main features, this major and semi-major, which are these two, which is the major feature enhancement is the postseason feature, if you want to call it that, which is only for custom leagues right now. It may change, I'm not sure, but I think it makes more sense to start with custom leagues compared to historical leagues, because with historical leagues, or that whether they're team or season, the postseason schedule, if the team was in the postseason, isn't automatically included when you download it from RetroSheet, where I get that data from, and it's not obvious what the gamer wants to do when they're doing a replay, how they handle postseason. They have a lot of options, so I decided that I'm not going to worry about that right now, but I'm going to focus on the custom postseason feature because I think that's more common. If you're going to have your own little league, you're probably going to have some kind of playoff at the end of it, and usually those seasons aren't as long. So, with that, I'm going to talk about postseason, I guess, feature overall fits into Green Fox, and I'll also talk about this other semi-major feature of just saving your game results and the stats and the performance of that. So let's get into these. Okay, so getting back to this postseason game feature, because it is like a second season, it has a few parts. There's the scheduling part, the stats part, the standings part, and maybe the leaders part from the stats. So let's see how that works. Here's a custom league. I have 4 teams. Here's the end of the regular season after 18 games. And I want to have a little playoff. This is like Little League, where everybody makes the playoffs. Or maybe not Little League, but one of those leagues. And you can see here I added some playoff games here in purple. That's how they show up. And that's really all you need to designate them as a playoff game. Is this game type has to have a P at the beginning of it. Right? Look at this hover. This game type is, 0 denotes a single game, and the 1 and 2 are for doubleheader games. So I'm having 2 3-game series. I need to add. My first series is Astros and the Mets, and the Expos and the Yankees are also going to play 3 games. But I need to add this third game, so I'll just do that now. So it basically works the same as, same as all the other scheduling things except this one item. The season game numbers continue as they were in the regular season. You don't restart them for the playoffs because that doesn't matter. So this will just be game 42 for this league. Here I'm just going to put P. I'll put day. This park, for the ballpark, this is another minor feature that's new in 4.4 that we'll talk more later. But if you assign a ballpark to your custom league teams, it'll fill it in on the schedule automatically. But I do have to fill in my game ID, so I'll follow my own little pattern here. I gotta put my ID, so this is gonna be Montreal versus New York. Now, pitcher-wise, I can use that starting pitcher assignment table, or if I already know who's gonna pitch, you can just start typing them in, and it'll figure them out. So I would say Montreal. It's probably gonna be, I'll say Steve Rogers here. So it kind of picks that up. And over here for the Yankees, Pat Dobson. I'm going to start here. Okay, so that's all I need to put in to enter the game, or just really the season game number, kind of following these yellow required ones. But this, those are the ones I've already filled in. So when I go to lock this, if it passes the test, you'll see it fills in the rest by coloring this, by filling in the stadium, and then knowing which game number it is for each team. So that's how you do the scheduling of playoff games. So now let's look at how you would then go on to do the stats once you play some playoff games. Good. So let's get on to the postseason stats. So I've played 2 games, as you can see here, and the Mets beat the Astros in both games. You can see here by the scores. So look, but to kind of show you how it works, I'm going to go to the score sheet, which I've cleared out, and I'm going to reload this second game here and pretend, basically resave the stats. So to do that, I'm going to use this load game event log feature. So I reset my score sheet. I go to this, and so ask me which game ID I want to reload. So I'm going to click this second game here. And what it's really doing behind the scenes is, if you look way over here, here's the game event log data. And that's what it uses to populate the score sheet. So I'm going to click that. It basically refills in the score sheet for both teams. It doesn't fill in the stats, so I do have to recompute that, which I'll do now, and then reassign my pitching. So this is Dave Smith getting a loss, Matt Lott getting a win, and Miller getting a save. So now I'm going to save this game, and when I do that, because I've already saved it, it's asking me if I want to overwrite it. I'm going to say yes here. So it's doing its thing. I don't need to worry about that. And when it's done, oops, it's going to prompt this question from the user to the user. Says, so typically at the end of every game you save, it updates the standings, and that's what it's going to do here also. But because now this is a postseason game, it wants to confirm what standings do you want me to, just does the spreadsheet want you to compute, either the regular season or the postseason. So that's where it says here you can enter R for regular or P for postseason. You have to enter R or P. So I'll put a P in here because I want to update the postseason standings. And this here's another new feature in 4.4, which is a game option, which by default is on, but you can turn it off so that at the end of each saved game operation, when it's done saving a league game, it'll prompt you to save your GreenFox spreadsheet file. And I'm going to say yes here. I did this in response to a couple of inquiries that I received, because I guess it is kind of confusing when this says save game and results. Even though it completes, it saves it on the spreadsheet that you have open in computer memory, but it doesn't save it to your disk. So this actually then will update your file on disk, so it saves it, I'll say, more permanently. But you have to do both steps for that to work. So here I will say yes, save. And once it does that, then it's done. So let's look at a couple things here. first we'll look at the standings. I should use this navigator sheet here just to kind of promote my own features. So for the standings, so I click defaults to main, I go to the standings. So here are the standings. So now because I click postseason, it shows this little postseason row up here. And you can see my postseason just has these 2-game results. If I want to go back to see the regular season, I just hit this compute and you get the same prompt. And this prompt is kind of automatically figured out. If once on your schedule you have at least one completed playoff game or postseason game, when you compute your standings, it'll ask this so it knows what you want to see. So here, if I say R for regular season, it'll compute the regular season and hide that postseason row. But if I just say, okay, now go back to the postseason, I get that. So it looks like I need to update this streak thing there for the postseason. But anyway, that's how the standings work for the postseason. So now let's take a look closer at the actual player stats. Okay, so for team and player stats is when it comes to postseason stuff. Let's see how that works. So if we look down here in the, let me use my again, in these stat sheets, in the game player log, the batter game log, you'll see in here, if I let me sort this by the season game number here. What's new is here is I added this column D, which is, it says R or P, but you can't really see the P. Basically just denotes whether it's regular season or postseason. And you can see here, these were all regular season until I get down to the end. 37 and 38 are the postseason games. You can see here by my different game IDs. So other than that, everything else is the same, and that's the same is true for the pitcher game log. Added this similar column, and for these team batting log, same thing, and the same team for team pitching log. So that's what's new in those. And so when you upgrade to this version, it'll automatically put in R's for all your games, because so far you haven't been able to denote any postseason game. So even if you were in theory playing a postseason game, you didn't know, so it will put in R's for all those. So the difference is when you want to compute your season stats. So now if I want to compute, if I go to my season batting stats, and I want to compute these, same kind of thing. Let's click this button to compute both my batting and pitching. When I click it, just like for the standings, it'll prompt me to say, do you want regular season or postseason? So if I click postseason here, and I only have 2 games, so there won't be a lot. There'll only be 2 teams worth. But you can see here's my postseason batting, and it puts this little in this cell. It denotes that it's postseason. So that's for the batting, and for the pitching, similar. So that's postseason, but there's no RP column here because these are totals. So that's how those work. And similarly, if we do the team, it's team stats. So these are team regular season. If I do these for team postseason, the only 2 teams that have played any postseason games, the Astros and the Mets. That's what you get here. So it's as simple as that. Then if we jump over to the league leaders, looks like these are already in the post. Maybe not this. I guess these are not these are regular season. So if I go to here and say, sorry, compute, you can see here, this is minimum plate appearance. This is 56 based on 18 games. So if we compute this, again, we'll see the same question. So let's say P for postseason, then it'll try to figure out, what should be the plate appearance qualifier for this. And it looks at the teams that have played postseason games, and each one has played at least two that's played any, so it offers that as the minimum for qualifications. Well, anyway, I'll say okay. Again, it's only going to be two teams worth, but that's the only time you're probably going to get somebody batting 143 and being your batting average leaders. But and similarly, it puts this little uh, flag or uh, text up there at the top, so if you're looking at postseason or regular season. So same for the pitching. So anyway, that's how the postseason works in the version 4.4. Basically, it's how you schedule the games. You play the games the same way, but when you compute your stats and your leaders and your standings, it'll prompt you for which version of whatever it is you want to see, whether it's postseason or regular season. That's how that works. Okay, now before I start going through all the other, I'll say, minor features, I do want to go back to this second point on this prior slide. We're talking about the semi-major feature of the score sheet now saving the game result and stats, this major performance boost to complete. And what that's about is you'd only really notice it if you've played quite a few games in your league. Again, I didn't really notice it, but I've only ever played less. I have not created a league where I played more than 50 games, so I didn't really notice the I'll say the slowness that it could take to save a game until I was uh, looking into a couple things, thanks to a couple of Green Fox users that sent me their spreadsheet, and they had played over 300 games in their Green Fox league. When I went to do some testing and save the game, I noticed it took a couple minutes to save a game almost. Maybe not quite that long, but noticeably longer than I was used to. And I thought maybe something was wrong. So I looked at the code and realized that it was just because it was basically redoing all the games, and it didn't really need to do that. But that's why it was taking so long. But when I did my initial work, it didn't. I never noticed it because I didn't have that many games. So what I did was rework the code so that it only saves the data for the game you're playing and not anything else. So that should increase the performance if as the more games you play, it shouldn't take any longer to save a game. Basically you should always take the same amount of time to pretty much save a game, whether it's your first game or your 500th game in a league. So that's that. And thanks to some of my users for giving me their spreadsheets that had so many games in them. So now let's start looking at these minor features. I'll just kind of talk through them quickly, and then we'll go and look at them. So there's a tweak to the quick score, adding a line out. That's just my own personal pet feature. There's the game option to save, which we talked a little bit about that already. The ability on the schedule to delete the results for a game. That was a feature request from a user. A more convenient way to use historical or actual game results for score-only result. There's now it handles combined season stats for players that have played on multiple teams. I added a computer all button. Related to that slowness of saving a game, I added some messages and a little more savviness to when it does save those team game stats. That's what takes the longest. it now does it more gracefully, and I'll show you that as an example. Then there's the home ballpark for custom leagues, and the upgrade has a few more little bells and whistles. So let's get to looking at some of these things. So as far as the quick score, if we look at this score sheet I have here, and this is using a historical league season with the 65 Giants. This is really minor, but I'll show quickly. So if we look at the help here, if I look at I don't know how many people have ever looked at this, but here's kind of this is the main score sheet, batter block buttons or key, and here's the quick score version if you use quick score. But what's new is down here. So this used to be ground out, fly out, pop out, but now it's ground out, line out, and down here is fly out, pop out. So the way that would work is, let's say McCovey's up, and I have a quick score on, I believe. So if I just click here once, it'll mark that he grounded out. If I click here again, it'll mark it as a line out. If I want to click down here, it'll be fly out, then pop out. It'll just kind of keep cycling through those. So that's all that's new is there's a line out. And that's just, again, my own personal annoyance that when I was playing some games that line out wasn't an option. So now it is, and it uses that what is the stealing home cell uh, that's now being put to use in the quick score. So that's quick score. Let's see what else we've got. Okay, the next thing I want to talk about is the game option to prompt the user to save your spreadsheet after the game, after you save a game. And I already kind of showed this, but so here in the game options, this new number 22, like again, by default, it's on, and it just means it'll prompt you to save your spreadsheet file after you save a game. You can turn it off if you don't want to, but in general, I feel like it's a good thing to save your work to your hard drive or SSD or whatever you have, just to have a less chance of losing something. So that's that feature. Um, the next thing on the list was on the schedule. That's this new button up here, the button to delete stats from a game. And I don't know if we have any hover text, but that's really just for a game that you've already played. So if I click this, it'll say, give me a message, this should tell me how to use this. So in order to delete the results from a game, including all the stats from an already played game, and reset the scheduled game as unplayed, you first must select the score cell of the game you want to reset. And it says you must select the game that has been played and has associated stats, not a score-only game. Because you can just unlock the schedule and delete the score-only score to correct that. So the main thing is you click the score. So let's just pretend I'm going to do it. Maybe I made some mistake in this game here. So I highlight the score, click this button, and it'll say, do you want to delete the results and stats for this game ID? If I say yes, it'll ask me one more time just to confirm if I really want to do it, and tells me this is my last chance. I'm going to say no here because I don't really want to delete it, but if you do, it essentially will just do just that, delete it all, and reset this game as unplayed. So that's what that does. The next thing I want to show is the actual score using the historical score feature. I can use this same schedule here to do it. So this is my 65 Giants replay. You can see here I have several games I've used the as or put in a score only instead of actually playing the game. So what this new feature is if I wanted to have a score only for this result right here, this uh, game here against the Cardinals, again, I could unlock my schedule and I could put in a score I want. And if I wanted to use over here, it shows when I loaded this schedule, it does show the actual as played or historical result of the game, which was St. Louis won the game 3-1. So if I wanted to use that, like in the kind of the old school way or current way still, I could write it in like that with the asterisk to note it's a score only, and then the visitor, and then the home score, like that. But what the convenience of the new feature is I'm going to delete that now, would be just to, once I have this unlocked, is just to click over here on this actual score, like this, and it'll prompt me. Hey, do you want to use the actual historical score of, and it tells me what it was, San Francisco 1, Cardinals 3, for this as a scored only result? Click yes, and it'll write it in there for me. So it won't let you do it for a game that's already been played. It'll say these scores cannot replace an existing game score. So anyway, that's how you do it. So you can pick multiple games if you wanted to, and say you want to use this one. Yeah, I want to use that too. So now when I lock it, it'll update this number of completed games, but my played games won't change. Okay, so now I'm up to 52 games, and you can see it filled in the winner and losers of these games. So that'll affect my standings, but there are obviously no stats for those games. So that's that new feature that's, I think, really helpful for people doing historical leagues that really want to use some historical results of games that they don't want to play and maybe they don't want to quick play. They'll just use the historical score, and it's a good way if you want to, I guess, just see how the games you play impacted the standings. Okay, so let's go on to the next little feature here of uh, combined season stats for players. So in this league, the Giants had a couple of guys that got traded. So if I look at again, I want to use this navigator button more. If I go to the stats, well, I'll go to this roster thing here first. I'll use this to find my Giants. So here are my Giants. So here's my roster. You can see all these players with multi-team here, the ones that were traded during the season. Um, Dick Schofield is one of them for Pittsburgh and the Giants, amongst many others, but he was one of their starters. And so what I did in this replay, I'll also show you my league. I'm not sure where I have it in here. My league notes. I made a little note for Harvey Keene also. So this is the note page that I hardly ever use, but I was just glad I could have a use for it here, which I made a note that told me when Schofield was traded, so I knew when to stop using him or officially. And same with Harvey Keene. So uh, I used them for both teams, and since I've passed this May date for many of the games, because I was really just playing these Marichal start games. So, anyways, the whole point was Schofield has played for Pirates and the Giants in this replay. And if I go to my stats batter game log and I go on the player name and drop down and say, here's Dick Schofield. So I can unselect everybody, just select him. And you can see here, there are some San Francisco games and Pittsburgh games. And really, these should have all been Pittsburgh. This is before I really figured out that he shouldn't have been playing those games. But at any rate, it's still it's an okay example to show what I want to show. If I sort this like this, I'll say he's only had 2 Pittsburgh games, and all the rest games with the Giants. But now, if we go to the cumulative stats, the season batting stats, I believe these are up to date. But we'll do the same thing here and find Dick Schofield in here. You'll see here now when it computes the stats, he gets 3 rows. One for Pittsburgh, one for San Francisco, and the third one, the team ID is TOT for total. And that shows his cumulative stats for both teams put together. So that's what's new. So that works for batters and for pitchers. And one thing I'll say is maybe I don't know if I'd say a disclaimer, but when it does the league leaders, which maybe this will also show up in here. Yeah, I guess it does. If we look at Dick Schofield, you'll see here that like here's the Dick Schofield total, and here's the Giants one. So it can show up either way. It doesn't necessarily exclude the others, the teams, if he has a total for both. So that's a little quirk. I'll see what I wanted if I want to do anything with that, but I don't think it's gonna be the downfall of civilization right now if it works like that. So anyway, that's the combined results for players that play for multiple teams in a season. All right, a couple more things on the stats. So there's now this compute all stats button, and what it'll do is compute the stats for basically all these 6 or maybe 7. I think it'll prompt the leaders at the end, but the team batting and the season stats for batters or for players and teams, as well as the leaders. So it'll prompt you, and it'll potentially compute all the stats that can be computed. So that's just a convenience. The next thing I want to show related to that is the specific thing of computing these team batting logs, because these take the longest to compute. So let's go to this team batting log. I want to compute the per game team batting log. And if I hit this button, it'll show me this message that says, these could take a few minutes to complete. These calculations are required to compute the season team stats, but they're not required to compute the individual league leaders or individual stats. So, and that's there really just so you can decide when you want to compute them or not. But here it says, so then it asks, do you want to compute them? And I'm going to click yes here. And then it tells me that the status bar in the lower left will show the progress of this process. And I think it only shows this if you have so many games that you've already played. But once I start this, you'll see down here, Excel has a built-in status bar, and that's what it uses. So let me click OK. So you see down here now it's showing this 20-30% down lower left. So that's how you kind of know that it's still making progress. You can see it takes a little bit, and then it's done. So that's, and once you play so many games in your league, when you're done playing a game, it basically saves stats to four things. It saves your your game result to this batter game log and pitcher game log, and then it also saves the game result to these two team logs. And so when you save a game, it only well now it will only save the new game stats to each of these. So like I said before, saving one game isn't going to be any problem. But when you want to see your team season stats, you're going to need to have these team batting, team game log stats computed. So that's why you'd want them. So I'll do it for both here using this. Let's just go with this compute all stats. So if I do this, it's going to tell me the same thing about the per game batting stats. So I'm sure it'll get pretty obnoxious. I don't know about obnoxious, but a little annoying maybe that it tells you that every time. But so it's doing the batting stats. You can watch that percent move up down there, and then it'll probably prompt maybe about the pitching, or maybe it won't on the pitching. But you can see now it's doing the pitching. I think here, for example reasons, I lowered the threshold. I think it's 50 games that you need, but I think I didn't have 50 in this, so I lowered it for the batting for demonstration purposes. But it'll show the percent no matter what. But I think it only shows you the prompt if there's more than 50 games. Uh, anyway, so now it's doing the cumulative stats. So now it's after it's done computing, these uh, team logs, these season batting stats. It did the season team stats, and now it's prompting about the league leaders. Let's just finish this up. And then this is the standard thing about the plate appearances. I'm going to say, I'll say both, but there's only National League in here anyway, so it doesn't really matter. So we'll compute these leaders. It did tweak it so the leader is that it doesn't flicker so much. It doesn't do as much screen updating. So now here are my leaders. Anyway, so that's the new feature as far as computing stats goes. Nothing super exciting. And I think if there was anything else, oh yeah, uh, for a custom league, which let me see, I think I had a custom league here. Here's back to my custom league. The other feature that we kind of already touched on was on the, if I go to the league setup sheet. Here is on my custom league, and here's where I could put these team names. I guess in this example, I think I had it in my. Sorry, I'm showing the wrong. Showing the wrong spreadsheet. I got too many things going on. In my league setup, oh, this must be my wrong. Sorry, I got my navigator, the wrong navigator showing. Okay, now sorry about that. Okay, so now here's my league sheet for my custom demo here, and this is what I wanted to show is this column over here, this optional ballpark column. So this is where you can enter in the home ballpark for each team. It's totally optional, just like the colors, that's optional. But once you do that, um, when you schedule a game, it'll automatically fill those in, as well as when you go to the score sheet and load a game, it'll load it up here just like you would in another game. And one thing I'll mention on that league, just like these team colors, when you make a change here to one of these things, the colors or the ballpark, as soon as you do it, in order to make that go into effect, you'll let's just do this here. Let's say I go to here and I want to make this. Let's make the background this dark blue for the Yankees. I'm going to make my text white. So that's my Yankees team colors now. So, and now I go to my score sheet. I'm going to restart this game. Or not restart it. Let's clear my score sheet here. And I want to load a game. I want to load this Yankee game here. And when I load it, whoops. Oh, that's okay. That was telling me because I'm loading a playoff game, there weren't any stats for these guys. Anyway, down here you can see the Yankees, nothing's colored in. And the reason is when you make a change there, in order to activate it, you need to reload this info. So let's clear this out. Now I'm going to do one more thing here. Let's go recompute my. I'm going to recompute these, but not use the playoffs. I'm going to recompute these for the regular season. Okay. Now that's that. Now, sorry. Back to my score sheet. I'm going to reload my league info. And now I'm going to reload this game. So now two things happen here. One, you can see now it has my Yankee team colored stuff showing up. And it also now has their stats. If I would have, when you, as far as these stats go, it just loads the current, whatever's on the cumulative or season stats sheet, whether that's regular season or playoffs, that's up to you. So if you wanted to show what you want to see and hear their season stats, you have to compute those. If you want to see their playoff stats, you have to go compute the playoff stats, and then it would show those. So that's what I want to show about the league and the ballpark, as well as the colors and how to get those in effect right away. So that I think is the last thing, other than I mentioned when you upgrade now. After you upgrade, it'll prompt you if you want to ask you if you want to compute the stats, because if you recall, or when you perform an upgrade, it only copies these two sheets of stats, the batter game log and the pitcher game log, because that's all you really need to compute all the other ones. But I've had several people ask me after the upgrade why their league leaders don't show anything, and that's because they didn't recompute their stats for their league after they upgraded. So now when you upgrade at the end of it and it's successful, it'll ask you if you want to compute the stats then. And you don't have to, but you can, and that'll make sure that you're all ready to go for your league leaders and stats and hover stats for your lining up and all that stuff. So anyway, that wraps up what's new I think here's my little list here in my version sheet. I think that covers everything I wanted to of what's new in GreenFox version 4.4. And I hope this will help you out in your GreenFox projects. That wraps up this GreenFox video. I hope you found it helpful, and feel free to leave me some comments.